Okay, welcome back. Now, this time, because the next segment is highly related to what we just did, I'm going to stay with housing prices V6 and just add to it. We looked at where the middle was before. Now we're going to find out what is the spread or variation. And we'll go through several measures, starting with this most simple measure, which is the range. I'm not sure if you know much about the range, but um, the range is a very simple calculation. It takes us the maximum value minus and subtracts the minimum value. But this time, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to highlight the column of data for price. And once I get the whole column highlighted, I'm going to right-click and define name. And notice I included the title of price. So it knows that the label price should go with that data set. I say OK. And now I have a handy way to refer to those data values in B2 to B40 based on price. Now, Excel doesn't have a function for range, so we're going to use the max function minus the min. So I'm going to say equals max parentheses. But this time, instead of typing B2 to B40, I'm going to type in the word price. And notice as soon as I hit the E in price, it highlights the column B. I can put a closed parentheses on that, and then I can subtract the min for price in a very similar fashion. Max minus min, I hit enter. There's my range of price, and I can add a decimal point to that. I can add my apostrophe there, and like other things, like I've been doing, I can copy and paste that to the cell to the right in column C, and then I can go back and get rid of the apostrophe. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that yourself. I'm leaving it up for the visual effect. You might want to not have that. You might want to try calculating all these values for the other columns. The only problem here is, since I've worked with price, copying that to the next column, I'd have to define names for beds, baths, etc. The next value we're going to calculate is the variance. The variance is really a starting point for um, the standard deviation, which we'll talk about quite a bit coming up. So the variance, we're going to use the function var-s, and it estimates the variance based on a sample. And that's good because we're only really interested in this sample of 39 houses. We don't know much about the population, and that's something else that we'll be talking about more in week 2. But here, I can just type in price. A lot of people find that that's a lot easier. And now I have my variation for price, a variance, I should say. The variance tends to be a fairly large number. And to be consistent, I will copy B50 over to C50 and get rid of the apostrophe in B50. Apologize, I needed to go back and get rid of the apostrophe in B50, not C50. And actually, that's I leave a few mistakes in here just to give you the idea that you should be able to recognize your mistakes and fix some of them quickly. The next calculation I'm going to abbreviate to STD.DEV, standard deviation. And just like the variance, I can say equals and start typing ST, and you'll see that there's an STDEV.S. Estimates the standard deviation based on a sample. Pop in price, Hit enter. Now we've got the sample standard deviation. Add a decimal as we've been doing. Copy that formula from B51 to C51. Let's see if I can get rid of the right apostrophe this time. Success. So now, the standard deviation is often thought of as the average deviation, often the absolute deviation of all the data values from the average. So if I look at a value and compare it to the mean and take the absolute value, I should be off, on average, about $67,000. The last calculation we're going to look at is the coefficient of variation. Again, abbreviating just for brevity. The coefficient of variation is a way to show a relative measure of the standard deviation. So if I take the standard deviation in B51 and divide it by the mean, that really should be a percentage. So I'm going to reformat that to a percent 32. We don't even need decimals here. So that's a nice relative measure to show how much variation we have as compared to the mean. And of course, I'll make that formula present in column C and get rid of the apostrophe in column B, which I did successfully. And now you've got the most basic measures of central tendency and variation. We'll look at more of these in the next video or the next Camtasia.